I'm just really, really glad to be here and very honored and very thankful to receive this. It's so wonderful to be back in California. I went to Pepperdine, so I have very, very fond memories of California. I never got on a boat. I don't know. I never rode a yacht. Did go to the beach, but I was a college kid.
Next time, Sharon.
Yeah, next time. Okay, yeah, promise. Okay. But it's just really, really a blessing to be here. And when I hear that and people read that big long bio thing, my children all go, "Are they finished, Mom?" You know, I said, just a little bit more, just a little bit more. But it really is an honor, and it really is a blessing, and I'm just very, very thankful. I'm so glad to be here with Mr. Fugate and with all of the people here, and with the people from the university, and the educators who are in the room. All of us are educators. If you work with young people at any time, you are an educator. And I want to take a minute to celebrate the graduate students. Where are you? Where are you? Stand up. Stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up. Good. Where's the graduate students? Whether you are graduating or still working, that means you get to get up. Okay. Everybody who is, okay. Because, as Alice said, you are the next generation, okay? If you are an educator and you know these young people, give them stuff. They need stuff. You know stuff that they don't have and they don't know. Give them stuff from your bottom drawer. Help them out. They need all they can get. I've been in education for a very long time, and I've been all over the world. Claudette just got back from China. I wasn't sure if she was coming because she posted her pictures late, and I'm going, I don't think Claudette's coming. She's on the Great Wall. We have pictures of her. But she got back about the same time that I got back from Egypt. So I just got back from 2 weeks in Egypt, and before that I was 2 weeks in Italy, and I don't even know how all this happens. Like I said, my life is a blessing, and I'm just very, very thankful. All right, I'm going to walk toward this. Carefully, there we go. Okay. I want to talk just a little bit about Stella by Starlight and talk about why it's so meaningful that Stella has received this honor, that Stella has been recognized as an upstander. When I got the letter, it said, Stella is an upstander. And I'm like, wow! I'm just really proud of this little girl. And I'm going to tell you the story of how the story got started. When I was a little girl, okay, no, we'll go back further than that. Let's go back to 1905. Kids say, man, I knew she was old. I didn't think she was that old. In 1905, my grandmother was born. And she was born in a little bitty town in North Carolina. And she was dirt poor and had very, very few advantages. All of us who are here were familiar with yachts and universities. She knew nothing of that. She was just a little girl in the South. And when she was 10 years old, she was forced to quit school because they needed her to work. She could read a little bit, write a little bit. What else do you need? So she had to quit school, and it broke her heart because she was the one person who was, she was the learner. She was the dreamer. She was that kid. But it's 1915 in the South. What are you going to do? So she quit school. Now, she had to work all day in the fields, but at night she would go outside and she would take a little notebook and she would write in this notebook, by the light of the moon, by starlight. Her name was Stella. She wrote by starlight. And so nobody paid much attention to it. Nobody thought it was a big deal. Nobody thought it was amazing that this little girl went outside. Mostly it was like, there she goes out there writing again. Something wrong with that girl. And so nobody paid any attention to it. She grew up, got married, had my daddy. He grew up, finished school, first in his class, by the way, got married and had me. And when I was a little girl, like 10, we would go south and go visit my grandma. This little girl had grown up and was a grandma. Little girls do grow up and become grandmas. And so we would go and visit, and we'd sit, and this is everything I learned about the South, about farms, about milking the cow. Do you know that milk is warm when it comes out? It's like, I remember the first time I got warm milk, it was like, Grandma, this is warm. It just came out to cow, girl, what you want? It's like, wow. Eggs are warm when they're laid. Really? So everything I learned from her. On the weekends, at night, on the front porch, everybody in town would gather on Grandma's front porch, and they would tell stories. Oh, the stories they would tell. And the later it got, and the more spiked that lemonade got, the better the stories got. And I'm just sitting in the corner hoping they don't make me go to bed because they were getting good at that time, you know. And I sat there and I listened to those stories and absorbed those stories. I had no idea when I was listening to those stories that they were influencing my life. I didn't know that. I met a 10-year-old recently who said, so, when you were listening to your grandmother, did you take notes? I just didn't want to be sent to bed. I wanted more cookies. I was 10, you know, I didn't think about that. So that was just an event in my childhood. So I grew up, got married, had kids. We were able to take my children back to Grandma's house on that same little farm and visit in that same place. She stayed in that same house her entire life. So I, you know, in 1982, my grandmother passed away. And just before she died, she gave my father that notebook. Now, I don't know how many notebooks she kept, but one of them she kept all her life. And she gave it to my father, and she said, here, boy, do something with this. And he said, okay, Mama, because that's what you do when your mother tells you to do something. And so he came to me and said, you some kind of writer, do something with this. And so I said, okay, Daddy. I didn't know what to do, so I had this journal written by this little girl in 1950. It is not a world-shaking novel. It is not beautiful poetic passages. It's the writing of a 10-year-old girl on front steps in North Carolina, okay? I didn't know what to do with it. I treasure it because it's my grandmother's words and thoughts. It's written in pencil on a school notebook. So I kept it for a long time, did not know what to do with it. And my father kept saying, you gonna write that book? You working on my mama's book? You working on my mama's book? And okay, Daddy. Okay, Daddy. So finally, I got started working on it. And first, let me tell you, this book, Stella by Starlight, is not my grandmother's biography. It is not my grandmother's life story. Probably absolutely nothing that actually happened to my grandmother is in this book. It is a book of fiction. I lie for a living. I make this stuff up. Okay? It is based on the essence of my grandmother's life. It is based on the essence of a little girl who wrote on the front steps in the middle of the night. Okay? So the girl in the story, her name is Stella, and she lives in a little town in North Carolina. It's called Bumblebee, North Carolina. And I set it in 1932. People say, oh, why did you choose 1932? Because I can. There's no other reason. I chose that year because I wanted to. It was an election year. Things were going on in the world in 1932. There was an election going on. Roosevelt was running for re-election. Everybody said it was going to be a runaway, that there would be no problem. There was voter, I know you won't believe this, but back then there was voter suppression. Yes, I know we've gone way past that. And so, in 1932, if you were black and you lived in this little bitty town and you lived in the South, you were allowed to vote. It was legal, but you were not encouraged to vote. As a matter of fact, you were discouraged to vote. It was not the thing to do. So Stella's father decides, I'm gonna vote. And Stella's mother says, oh no, you are not. You will get us all killed. No, I gotta vote. It's the right thing to do. No, it is not the right thing to do. So there's this problem because it is dangerous and there is a threat. And there had been cross burnings in the woods in the middle of the night. And so the threat, because this book is written for 10-year-olds, the threat is not overt, but it is very clear that there is a threat there. And so the community has to decide, what are we going to do? Now that community has the closeness that I remember from that community as a child, where everybody would come. If you got sick, I'd make you some tea, and then when I got sick, you come over and you would have a poultice that would help my sore leg. And that's the way the community worked. When everybody got hungry, they had a potluck, and so everybody brought some food and everybody got fed. It was that kind of world, that kind of community. So on the day that they decide to go and vote, Stella's, let me read two little sections. Stella's father decides to make a difference. Stella's father decides he's gonna be, it's okay. Stella's father, decides he's gonna be an upstander. Not like he planned it. It's just sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. And Stella learns a lot from observing the courage of the people around her. Our children look at us and watch us. And our children see what we are doing and how we live our life and how we treat other people. They observe. So Stella says, is Papa going to vote today? Her mother closed her eyes. Lord help us, yes. Well, Mama, what if somebody burns down our house or something? I have no idea. So Stella's father walks into the room and the mother is extremely nervous. What got you so itchy, Georgia? Papa asked. It's election day. My husband thinks he has to vote. Jojo has a cold. I ripped my best apron on a nail. I spilled the bacon grease. There's crazy people who want to hurt my family. Houses are getting torched. I worry about what my children will eat this winter. You take your pick, she said sharply. Honey, I'm sorry. I know it's rough, but I'm doing this for you, for Jojo, for Stella, said his wife. You tell that to the undertaker. I gotta do what I gotta do. Why, she said. It's not like Mr. Roosevelt needs your vote. Everybody hates Hoover. Newspaper says Roosevelt can't lose. But I can, Papa said. Georgia, this is how it's gotta be. I gotta stand tall. I have a right to vote. A right, I tell you, and a responsibility. For once in my life, I must be a man. And I like to think that by standing for all of us, if I don't stand up, I feel like I'm crouching low. And I ain't gonna feel low no more. Anyway, Stella learns more than she ever knew that she would learn. And no, I never watched my grandmother go vote. But Stella learns about all these things. She watches the people in her community. She figures out. Stella is not a superstar. Stella is not. Now Stella goes outside and writes by the light of the moon as well, but Stella goes outside to write not because she's a good student. She writes because she's flunked in 5th grade and she's afraid that her teacher, who stands next to her mother in the choir, is going to tell her that she's not doing good in school, and she, her mother does not allow her to mess up in school, so she goes outside at night to practice her writing. I even included her writing samples in the book. So she works and she worries and she's afraid. She sits outside on her front porch. She thinks nobody knows. But everybody in the community knows that Stella girl goes outside and writes at night.